Remember when the name Ubisoft actually meant something? Well, there's been more news that has come out regarding the absolute state of that company and placing it against other things. It's become very clear that Ubisoft is cooked, guys. Like, stick a fork in this thing, it's done levels of bad, and later on I'll also talk about how one politician is also making waves for denouncing political correctness in video games, and the journalists are not happy because he calls out Ubisoft directly. But firstly, this comes from WCCFtech.com. Ubisoft has confirmed they have a record loss of 1.3 billion euros, and it is causing complete chaos at the company. A little lore for you as well, so you understand how bad this really is, right? Yes, $1.3 billion, that is a lot of money. It's also more money than Ubisoft is really worth just a mere 2 or so years ago before Tencent came in, and then saved them with over $1 billion extra to keep that entire company afloat right now. So this kind of means that Ubisoft has effectively lost the mass majority of their worth in a few years again. They're effectively worth next to nothing currently, and it's all because of moronic design decisions, of course. I don't think people realize just how catastrophic this really is, because for many game publishers, if they were in a similar position to Ubisoft, they would be freaking out right now and having panic attacks, and genuinely the only reason why Ubisoft exists at all right now is because of really Tencent. It can't be denied. They simply just don't have the money to keep themselves open without outside intervention. This is why Ubisoft's entire design has been uprooted and created into new divisions of studios within itself, with Tencent's guidance and money, of course, too. And obviously we know that Black Flag Remake is coming. That will likely do very well for Ubisoft, probably, unless they somehow mess it up with some stupid design changes instead. But largely speaking, Black Flag Remake is probably the first time in years where I'm actually looking forward to a game from Ubisoft again. Assassin's Creed Shadows, that was not it. That was a massive blunder, and despite what websites do try to say about it, Shadows did not in fact save Ubisoft whatsoever. When this first got announced, Ubisoft's stock price dropped and has since been recovering slightly, somewhat, maybe. Here's where it was at a few days ago, as you can see, somewhere around €4.50 per share, and here it is currently as I'm writing this video, where they have gone up slightly, but notice where I put my cursor on this all-time graph here too. You see, Ubisoft had a peak in July 2018 where every share of their company was worth a staggering 102, almost 103 euros per share. In 8 years, they've effectively lost pretty much all of their value since their highest peak until now. Obviously, the massive share price in 2018 makes sense, because during that period, Ubisoft had games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey coming out, which did very, very well for them. They also had other games like Far Cry 5, which also, unsurprisingly, did very good too. Ubisoft's best-selling game in years was Assassin's Creed Valhalla. That game generated well past $1 billion in its entire lifespan from 2020 until right now. Yet despite this massive win, it was not enough to save the company. It's crazy that these days this means Valhalla pretty much made more money than Ubisoft as a publisher is worth right now. And that is sad, man. Look, I liked Valhalla for what it was, I guess. Long and bloated, yes, but it was a fun game nonetheless. You know a game does well when a publisher invests further resources to expand it even more, right? Valhalla had tons of updates, multiple expansions, free live updates, it even had seasonal events. It was by and large a massive success for Ubisoft. The problem was that Ubisoft needed more Valhallas to really save them. Instead, they made a lot of bad games or canceled sequels to games that people actually wanted, like say Immortals Phoenix Rising, which I thought was actually a very fun game for what it was, but no, they canceled the sequel when it was in mid-development instead. And that Splinter Cell remake, that is still in development hell. Who knows what's going on with that right now too. Shadows, however, was the blow that really changed everything, and that just can't really be denied, as UK Finance reported here. Ubisoft confirmed the losses are not over for them, and they are still going to bleed money for the foreseeable future. As UK Finance said here further, Ubisoft is down about 17.4% year over year, meaning that despite what websites do try to say and push Shadows as this success story, it's not really true. Because if it were, we wouldn't have these articles then, would we? As UK Finance said here. The reaction from investors has also been, well, let's just say it, if the investors could, they'd probably would tie the Ubisoft CEO to a load of bricks and throw him in a lake if they could do that. Overall, Ubisoft plans to lose another $500 million, as they say there, and they also hope to then recover, which is just, oh man, that is yikes, dude. As some analysts said, as seen here, Ubisoft appears to be responding to the difficult market environment, but with significant uncertainties around delivery as well as effectiveness of the new operational structure. We expect the risk-reward to remain wide. Not exactly encouraging, but at least they're finally being honest, I guess. This all comes in line with Ubisoft also cutting about 1,200 jobs already, which will apparently save Ubisoft Ubisoft about $118 million. But they can, fire as many people as they want to. The devs aren't really the problem so much as the leadership is. Because you don't fall into a mess of this magnitude unless the people steering the ship have no idea where they're going in the first place. It's embarrassing, honestly. We should be multiple new Assassin's Creed games deep, and we should have had at least one new Far Cry game already since Far Cry 6. But Ubisoft's entire portfolio and content pipeline is so cooked right now that they've been trying to put out fires instead of, making games. I do feel bad for the developers though, because you can't really blame a level designer or some gameplay dev for really any of these problems, because this all falls squarely on the shoulders of their leadership. Yet, let's keep laying off the people not responsible, while the people who got us here in the first place are still in charge. Great idea, guys. Ubisoft still somehow employs a staggering 16,600 developers, which is more developers than multiple AAA studios combined and then some. Yet, it's so catastrophic, man. Let me tell you in a simple way how bad this all is. If you hypothetically invested $10,000 in 2018 at Ubisoft's high point when Assassin's Creed Odyssey came out, right now, today, you would have about $270 to $450 in investments left based on how much money Ubisoft lost in value from 2018 till right now. Fathom that, okay? Your 10K would have turned into 450, and that's at best. I would become a super villain if that happened to me, dude. I would straight up become the Joker. I would start terrorizing Gotham City and sending my Joker goons into Ubisoft if that ever happened to me, because that's actually criminal. Like, here's a handy dandy graph to show you the whole decline, okay? Yasuke included because, well, him being there is also a contributing factor to the financial disaster too. That cannot be denied. Regardless, Ubisoft has confirmed, as seen here from Eurogamer, they plan to have new games and all their key franchises come out by 2029, which that is a long time from now, man. That is an eternity in terms of content. 2029, dude. I'm gonna be like, what, 36, 37 years old then? God, I gotta start a family. Look, the point is, Ubisoft has cooked themselves so unbelievably hard that you got Assassin's Creed 2 through Valhalla, like, made and came out in the span of about a decade. In the same amount of time, all you're really gonna get now is Assassin's Creed Shadows, a Black Flag remake, and, well, that's about it pretty much. I mean, how does that even make you guys feel? Because it makes me feel sad, okay? Because, look, I love Assassin's Creed. Well, not Shadows, but I do like the series a lot. It was my guilty pleasure. The idea of going to these different eras and jumping on guards with my hidden blade, absorbing the culture, sure, it wasn't perfect, I know that, but it was really fun. I would even take a PS5 next gen, whatever you want to call it, ports of, say, Origins, Odyssey, Syndicate, whatever, so I can replay them at this point. Just so that I can enjoy those games again as guilty pleasure. Same goes with Far Cry 4 or even 5 getting next gen ports with upscaled graphics and then some too. It's just, we used to be eating so good, you know what I mean? Like, instead we don't really got much coming at us right now either. Like, give us another Assassin's Creed game set in the Viking era. Expand that even further because people obviously loved it. Give me Assassin's Creed during the Spanish Inquisition or World War I or II. Remember those missions in Syndicate where the Animus turned parts of London into World War I? Like, that was so sick, dude. I know some people would say, but guns in Assassin's Creed would ruin it. I mean, you can work around that. As long as you keep the game's world smaller and not big open battlefields 24/7, it should be totally fine. Either way, okay, we have gotten a lot less in the same time frame, and it's all Ubisoft's ineptitude to manage what people actually want these days. Besides Shadows not setting the world on fire, Hex or Hexy, however you want to say it, that witch-based Assassin's Creed game has already lost 2 game directors and is currently in development hell. You haven't had a new Far Cry game since 2021 when 6 came out. Again, what are we doing? How can something with so much potential be fumbled so badly like this over and over again? And how can we forget the Sands of Time remake that also got cancelled? It's a mess, man. Old school Ubisoft, like they were a trendsetter. Now they can barely even release a full game in 3 times the time it used to take them on their worst days. I mean, this was the same company behind Assassin's Creed 1 and 2, Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, Far Cry 3, Rainbow Six Vegas, and those Prince of Persia games like Warrior Within and more. People love those games. They had real identity, gameplay first design. Now the company just kind of looks unrecognizable to me. The only thing massive about Ubisoft really these days is their budgets, but the excitement around their games has shrunk in comparison. Ubisoft just became obsessed with chasing trends over making unforgettable games. Sure, yeah, the collapse wasn't overnight, okay, but when they kept releasing one sterile designed by committee game after another, is it really no wonder how we got here in the first place? I think people forgot how powerful Ubisoft used to be. They used to represent creativity and like actual experimentation. They used to have unique art styles, very memorable protagonists, and they did it all, man, like effortlessly. The worlds actually felt handcrafted. There was confidence in their design philosophy. Their identity was very clear, but then just something changed. They, like many, went from being studio driven to this like corporate high-powered machine that only really cared about broad audience appeal and the market trends. Their games used to feel like passionate projects. Now it's like they're just made in a factory or something. And they became the symbol of everything boring about modern game design. Huge maps for no reason, endless icons, here we go, clear the same camp 15 times. It was like their games were being made by an algorithm before like AI even really existed at the scale that it does right now. Not to mention, they famously said they wanted every game to be a live service, even if it was single player. Valhalla, by the way, that has a cash store. Despite not being multiplayer focused or anything like that. I mean, even Mirage has a cash store and the game's like 30 hours long. None of it makes any sense. Like, why does your single player game have more armor sets at launch behind a paywall than in your game to unlock by playing it? But no matter what, they still chased that trend aggressively, but that was the problem at its core. We didn't fall in love with Ubisoft because of live service design. We fell in love with Ubisoft because the company once delivered focused experiences with strong gameplay identity. Look at Skull and Bones. It costed them close to $1 billion to make that game and it still flopped. It's dead in the water, pun intended. Star Wars Outlaw, it performed so poorly, they just dumped it on the PlayStation Plus catalog recently, less than 2 years after its mainline release. Despite it being the game that Ubisoft, by the way, spent the most money ever when it came to their company history, like in advertising, I mean. The true crisis at Ubisoft is whatever they seem to do feels completely disconnected from what their fans actually want these days. Not to mention, they also infamously said that you should become comfortable with not owning your games. And speaking of not owning your games, this brings you to the other part of this story and video involving SKG, or Stop Destroying Games, as the European Union is now calling it. I won't waste much time here. You know what SKG is, the whole battle for games ownership. Anyways, one of the politicians who spoke during this panel about this initiative was a guy named Milan Urik. He is a Slovakian member of parliament that took to the stage and aired out his grievances as to why games are in such a problem spot. Milan Urik did not mince his words, and well, here's what he said. Watch this clip.
Wokeness and aggressive monetization is destroying video games. You wanted to talk about what's destroying video games here in the European Parliament. All right, I will say it loud. One thing that is definitely destroying video games is the crazy woke ideology and political correctness which is being forced into the games. For example, if we want to play as a samurai, obviously we want to play as a Japanese warrior and not to be forced to play as a black person warrior or female warrior as it happened recently in Assassin's Creed. Or to play as a queer character without any other choice. This is an issue, really, for players. The other thing which is destroying video games are aggressive monetization practices, never-ending microtransaction, insane pay-to-win, or even gambling loot boxes, like in casinos. These practices has to be stopped, as well as practice when a company shut down a game server right after you purchase your favorite game. I, as a computer game player, stand fully with the other players. We want fair game and we don't want to be cheated.
Now, as you can expect, this guy's little rant did not go over well with games media, and people in the comments on that clip even said that this guy might be an industry plant meant to derail the whole Stop Destroying Games discussion. But either way, Milan Urik caused people to get very angry because he directly called out Ubisoft for ruining Assassin's Creed Shadows by forcing Yasuke and Naoe down players' throats instead of honoring the Japanese people's cultures and what would realistically be the hero, which, let's be real, would be a Japanese man. Even though that annoys people, I mean, that is who would actually be there and not someone like Naoe. Because in case you didn't know, female shinobis, they never existed. You can even look it up yourselves. The concept of a female ninja was only made into something when Japanese novelists wrote fictional stories about them. In reality, it was never a thing. So be mad or not, Milan Urik got people very angry, and as you can see here from PC Gamer, who details that this Milan Urik guy was apparently a part of a right-wing group in Slovakia that splintered off to form the Republic Group. According to his Wikipedia page, they classify Urik as far-right and his belief system to be very much in line with far-right political views. I'm not really here to debate whether Milan Urik is far-right or anything like that. The point of the matter is what he said about ideology ruining games is still something that, well, needs to be dealt with one way or another. But I do agree that maybe where he said this, which was, during the Stop Destroying Games hearing, probably not the place to do so. We should be keeping our focus focus on the business side of the agenda here and ensure that there's laws put in place to protect consumers from these greedy companies. That obviously includes Ubisoft, who again told you guys to get comfortable with not owning your games. And remember, Ubisoft's The Crew is also the game that, kicked off the whole SKG thing to begin with. So they are very much tied to this problem very closely, whether people agree or not. That is just the truth. Again, what Milan Urik said about ideology in games, I mean, he's not wrong. It has ruined many games, that's true. And in Shadow's case, that game did not perform well because it was, by and large, a fictional historical revisionism of Japanese history meant to push a modern agenda. That's not a far-right claim to make. That is quite literally the case if you actually played the game. Because we know that Yasuke was real to some degree, but we also know he didn't accomplish anything besides being bought by Oda Nobunaga and then being sold back to the Jesuits. Yet in Shadows, if you played it, like I did, unfortunately for review on the channel, Yasuke is not portrayed this way in the game at all. Instead, Yasuke effectively frees Japan from their oppressors alongside Naoe by pushing back not only the corrupt Japanese officials threatening the sovereignty of its people, but also wiping out the Templar Portuguese side of the equation as well. Well, he takes out about like 2 Portuguese guys, but it still stands. Ubisoft divested resources away from that game because it was clear that nobody really cared enough to keep playing it, and I don't really blame them. The point still stands though that Yasuke even defeats Akechi Mitsuhide in combat, and near the end of that game, Mitsuhide, who famously slew Oda Nobunaga and historically gave Yasuke to the Jesuits because Yasuke was, well, kind of meaningless to him, that's just the reality. Well, in the Ubisoft version, Yasuke not only defeats Mitsuhide in samurai combat somehow, but Mitsuhide then begs on his knees for his life and calls Yasuke, and no, I'm not kidding, the greatest swordsman Japan has ever seen. Despite, if you don't know, only having taken up the katana and way of the samurai a mere 6 months or so before this fight even takes place. So it's not grossly out of proportion way of saying that Shadows is not only deeply offensive to Japanese culture as a whole, because it is, it also paints their people as weaklings who can't protect their own country either. But the Black Samurai, who again just learned how to use a katana 6 months ago, somehow saves Japan, defeats everybody, and, defeats the man who historically threw him back to his slave owners in reality. So is Shadow's gross propaganda meant to demoralize the Japanese people? I mean, yeah, in a way it is. It's not a far-right view or whatever claim they want to say. That's just what happens in the game, man. Again, I played it. I 100%ed the game, so I can speak about this like I am. I know the game. I know that Naoe is the daughter of an actual Japanese shinobi in the game, one of the Iga shinobi no less. Which again, Naoe is not real and would never have been a ninja like her father. That's just the reality. Yet her main villain, offensively, is an actual real legendary Iga shinobi in real life whose name was Hattori Hanzo, who, by the way, Naoe can defeat in combat and can even slay the guy if she chooses to, which is just crazy, dude. They really had a woman taking out Hattori Hanzo. Like, this is like making a story about Alexander the Great getting beaten by a woman in combat, but for like Japanese people. It's just crazy historical revisionism. It is what it is. Again, none of this is really helping. Milan Urik is right in that at least, but I do agree that bringing up what he did during that meeting was probably not the best place to do that. Either way though, what Milan Urik said and his example of using shadows, it's legit. I mean, it is. The game's not good. It is blatant propaganda meant to demoralize an entire nation's people, and it does not pay respect to the people of Japan, and instead uses their history and people as nothing more than props to push something into existence that has and never will happen. This would be like making a World War II story and saying that a black woman led the Allied forces single-handedly to defeat the Yazidis to secure victory. Like, that's just not true, man. Also, by the way, any game writer who's like listening to this, do not take that idea and make it into a game. Unless I guess you too want to lose 95% of your company's value like Ubisoft did, then I guess go right ahead then. And I mean, if Milan Urik was wrong, well, would Ubisoft be panicking and losing all their money like they are right now? Like, I get it, PC Gamer needs to denounce these sorts of ideas, because otherwise they're going to get ostracized by their so-called fellow games websites or whatever, but the truth still stands that people are indeed sick of that sort of stuff in games, and Ubisoft pushing it did not work the way that they wanted it to. Otherwise, we would have multiple expansions for Shadows, live events, seasonal events, and more, all in the same way Valhalla did if it was actually profitable. Yet, as ironically PC Gamer reported earlier this year as seen here, Ubisoft ended their support for Shadows less than a year after release, which again supports the fact that the game did not resonate the way that something like a Valhalla or Odyssey did. And by the way, they took the money from Tencent after Shadows, so yeah, it did not work. And Valhalla had over 2 years of full support from Ubisoft with multiple expansions, which kind of proves the point too. If games are doing well, publishers are going to invest more into them. That's just the truth. And when it comes to Shadows, which was meant to be the future of Ubisoft's content plans, it did not work. And now they're worth 5% of what they were when Odyssey came out. So you can rally for social justice all you want. But the reality is, even the so-called people who support you in spirit rarely if ever show up when it actually matters, and if they did, we would have seen a different future, wouldn't we? And Ubisoft, like many, started to favor and crave institutional support through pandering over their forward game design that they used to be known for, and well, the proof is there for you in what happened. It all hurts though, because we know Ubisoft is capable of making great games. It's just that their leadership has done nothing but drive everything into the ground instead, time and time again. They just can't really get out of their own way, and Ubisoft is now a warning sign of what happens when massive entertainment corporations drift too far away from the audience that made them successful. So in the end, Ubisoft's current situation did not happen because gamers suddenly became impossible to please. No, that is not it. It happened because one of gaming's biggest publishers slowly lost sight of what made people care in the first place, and that is just the truth. Because players can feel when a game is built with passion, and they can also feel when a game is assembled through layers of corporate management trying to manufacture engagement instead of creating something unforgettable like they used to. That's the real crisis facing Ubisoft, not really just financial decline, but the loss of their creative identity that once made the company matter at all in the first place. And unless they fix this and go back to giving people what they want, well, as that one guy in Far Cry once said, have I ever told you the definition of insanity? Thanks for watching, subscribe if you'd like to, and see you guys next time.